What if the kindest thing you ever did changed the entire universe? Not your neighborhood, not your city, not even your planet. The entire galaxy. Most people go through life never knowing how much their small actions matter. They wake up, they go to work, they help someone, and they never think twice about it. But this boy's story is different. This is the story of a human boy who did one simple thing every single day. He carried a girl to school, a disabled alien girl who could not walk the distance alone. He never asked why. He never asked for anything back. He just showed up. Every single day. What he never knew, what nobody told him, was that her mother was watching. And her mother did not rule a city. She did not rule a planet. She did not even rule a solar system. She owned the galaxy. Today, this story has 3 revelations that will shake you to your core. First, the real reason the girl never told him the truth. Second, what her mother secretly did every time she watched him carry her daughter. And third, the moment everything changed forever. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was Eli. Eli Carter was 15 years old, and he lived in a small town in Ohio, USA. The kind of town where everybody knew everybody. The kind of town where nothing exciting ever happened. Or at least, that is what Eli used to think. Eli was not the most popular kid in school. He was not the smartest. He was not the fastest. He was just a regular boy with a kind heart and worn-out sneakers. He woke up every morning at 6:15. He ate cereal. He packed his bag. And he walked to school alone because his mother worked the early shift at the hospital, and his father had been gone for years. Eli was used to being alone. He did not complain about it. He did not talk about it. He just carried it the same way he carried everything else in his life, quietly, and without making a big deal out of it. Then one Tuesday morning in October, everything changed. It was a cold morning. The kind of cold that bites at your ears and makes your nose run before you even reach the end of the driveway. Eli was halfway down Maple Street when he saw her for the first time. She was sitting at the edge of the sidewalk, right where the road curved near the old oak tree. She was small, thin. Her skin was the color of pale moonlight, slightly silver at the edges, and her eyes, when she looked up at him, were completely violet. Not blue. Not gray. Violet. Like the deep space photographs Eli had seen in his science textbook. She was an alien. That was not unusual anymore. Not in the year 2187. 20 years ago, first contact had changed everything. The interstellar accord had opened Earth's borders to peaceful alien species from across the galaxy. Humans had not gone out to find aliens. The aliens had come to them, and most of them came quietly, lived quietly, and simply wanted a normal life among the stars they had chosen. There were maybe 40 or 50 alien families in Eli's town. Most of them kept to themselves. Their kids went to the same school. They sat in the same classes. But there was still a distance. A quiet separation that nobody talked about but everyone felt. Eli had never really thought about it much. He was not the kind of boy who spent a lot of time thinking about politics or history. He just lived his life and tried to get through each day without too much trouble. But this girl stopped him cold. She was trying to stand up. Her legs were thin, and one of them was bent at an angle that made Eli's stomach tighten just looking at it. She had a bag over one shoulder, and she was pressing both hands into the sidewalk, trying to push herself upright. But every time she got halfway up, she slipped back down. She did not cry. She did not call out for help. She just kept trying, over and over again, quietly, stubbornly, like she had been taught never to ask for anything from anyone. Eli stopped walking. He stood there for 2 full seconds, just watching, and then something in his chest, Something he could not explain and did not try to, pushed him forward. He walked over. He crouched down next to her, and he said the only thing that came to his mind. "Hey, do you need help?" She looked up at him. Those violet eyes were sharp, intelligent. They studied him the way you study something you do not quite trust yet. She did not answer right away. She looked at his face, then at his hands, then back at his face. "I am fine," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. Her English was perfect, but there was a rhythm to it that was slightly different, like music played in a scale humans did not usually use. "You sure?" Eli said. "Because school starts in like 15 minutes, and it is kind of cold out here." She looked down the road toward the school. It was about half a mile away. Eli could see her doing the math in her head, could see her jaw tighten slightly as she calculated what half a mile meant for her legs on a cold morning. "I do not need help," she said again. But she did not move. Eli looked at her, then at her bag, then at the road ahead. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He sat down next to her on the sidewalk. She looked at him like he had lost his mind. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sitting," he said. "If you do not need help, that is fine. But I am not just going to walk away and leave you sitting on a cold sidewalk by yourself. So I will just sit here until you figure it out." She stared at him for a long moment. And then, just barely, the corner of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but something close to it. "My name is Saya," she said. "Eli," he said back. He stood up. He held out his hand. She looked at it for one more second, and then she took it. That morning, Eli carried Saya's bag and helped her walk the half-mile to school. It took them almost 20 minutes. They were both late to first period. Eli got a detention slip. He did not care. The next morning, he was back at the same spot on Maple Street at 6:45. Saya was already there, sitting on the sidewalk, bag on her shoulder, waiting. Neither of them said anything about it. They just started walking. And that was how it began. Saya never talked about herself. In the weeks that followed, Eli learned almost nothing about her. He learned that she liked silence. He learned that she watched people carefully before she trusted them. He learned that she was smarter than anyone else in their grade, maybe smarter than anyone in the entire school, but she never showed it off. What he did not learn was where she came from, who her family was, why she had come to a small town in Ohio, out of all the places in the known galaxy. He did not ask. That was just how Eli was. He figured people shared things when they were ready. He had his own things he did not talk about, so he gave her the same space he would have wanted for himself. Every morning, he showed up on Maple Street. And every morning, Saya was waiting. Some days she could walk better than others. On the good days, she only needed his arm for balance. On the bad days, the cold ones, or the days after she had pushed herself too hard, he carried her on his back the full distance to school. She always protested. Every single time. "You do not have to do this," she would say. "I know," he would say back. And that was always the end of the conversation. The other kids at school noticed. Of course they did. A human boy carrying an alien girl to school every morning was not exactly invisible. Some of them laughed. Some of them made comments under their breath. One boy named Derek said something loud enough for Eli to hear one afternoon in the hallway. Eli just looked at him. He did not say anything. He did not need to. There was something in Eli's eyes when he looked at people who tried to make him feel small, a kind of quiet steadiness that made most people look away first. Derek looked away. Saya saw it happen. She did not say anything to Eli about it afterward. But that evening, for the first time, she asked him a question that had nothing to do with school or the weather or the route to class. Why do you not care what they say? She asked. They were sitting outside on the school steps, waiting for the late bus. The afternoon light was turning gold and amber across the Ohio sky. Eli thought about it for a moment. I care a little, he said honestly, but not enough to change what I do. Saya was quiet for a long time after that. She looked out at the parking lot, at the cars pulling away, at the ordinary world going about its ordinary business. Where I come from, she said slowly, people only help others when there is something to gain. Eli nodded. That sounds exhausting, he said. She turned and looked at him. Those violet eyes were steady and serious. It is, she said quietly. That was the most she had ever said about home. And then the bus came, and she said goodbye, and the moment was gone. But something had shifted. Over the next few weeks, Saya began to open up. Not quickly, not all at once, but in small pieces, the way a door opens when someone knocks gently instead of banging on it. She told him she had been on Earth for 8 months. She told him her condition, the weakness in her legs, was something she had been born with. She told him most people back home had treated her like she was broken, like she was less valuable because she could not move the way others moved. She never told him her last name. She never told him about her mother. And Eli, being Eli, never pushed. What he did not know, what he could not have known, was that every single morning, from a window in a house 3 streets away from Maple Street, someone was watching them. Someone who had access to surveillance technology that made human military equipment look like toys. Someone who had the power to reshape entire star systems with a single order. Someone who had been watching her daughter get carried to school by a human boy for weeks. And that someone was learning something she had not expected to learn. She was learning what kindness looked like when it asked for nothing in return. Her name was never spoken out loud on Earth. Not because it was secret, but because most human vocal cords could not produce the sounds required to say it correctly. The closest translation in English was something like Sovereign Veil, but even that did not come close to capturing what the name meant in the language of her people. She was the matriarch of the Veil dynasty. To understand what that meant, you have to understand the scale. The Veil dynasty did not rule one planet. It did not rule one solar system. It governed 47 inhabited star systems spread across the eastern spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Hundreds of billions of beings across dozens of species fell under her authority. Her family had held that authority for over 3,000 years. She was, by any measurable definition, the most powerful individual in the known galaxy. And she was living under a cover identity in a house on Birchwood Lane in a small town in Ohio. Nobody on Earth knew who she was. That was intentional. When Saya's condition had worsened 2 years ago, the dynasty's best medical minds had recommended a specific type of low-gravity atmospheric therapy that was only naturally available in a handful of places. Earth's Midwest, with its particular combination of atmospheric pressure, gravity, and magnetic field composition, was one of them. So the matriarch had done something that shocked her entire court. She had come herself. Not with an armada, not with a diplomatic delegation. She had come with Saya, 2 trusted aides, and a cover story. She had enrolled Saya in a human school because the social stimulation was part of the therapy protocol. She had rented a house. She had lived quietly. She had watched her daughter struggle. She had watched Saya fall on that sidewalk the first morning and refuse to call for help. She had watched Saya grit her teeth and try to stand up over and over while the cold bit at her silver skinches. And then she had watched a human boy in worn-out sneakers sit down on the sidewalk next to her daughter. She had watched him carry Saya's bag. She had watched him walk slowly so Saya could keep up. She had watched him show up the next morning, and the morning after that, and the morning after that. She had run checks on him. Thorough ones. The kind of background analysis that took her intelligence teams approximately 11 seconds. She knew his name, his grades, his medical history, his family situation, and the exact amount of money in his mother's bank account. She had expected to find a motive. Everyone had a motive. In her world, nobody did anything without calculating what they would receive in return. That was not cynicism. That was simply how power worked. But there was no motive. Eli Carter helped Saya because he had seen someone struggling, and he could not walk past that. It was that simple. It was almost incomprehensibly simple to the matriarch. She had ruled an empire for 30 years, and she genuinely could not remember the last time she had encountered a being who acted purely out of kindness. It unsettled her. It also fascinated her. She began watching more carefully. She watched the way Saya's posture changed over the weeks. The way Saya started talking more, smiling more. The way Saya had looked at Eli that afternoon on the school steps and said the most honest thing she had said to anyone in years. The matriarch had heard that conversation through the audio feed. When Saya said, "Where I come from, people only help others when there is something to gain," the matriarch had felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Shame. Because Saya was not just describing her home world in the abstract. She was describing everything her mother had taught her to expect from people. The matriarch sat in her quiet house on Birchwood Lane, in a small town in Ohio, and she made a decision. She was going to meet Eli Carter. Not as the matriarch of the Vale dynasty. Not as the ruler of 47 star systems. Not as the most powerful being in the known galaxy. Just as Saya's mother. She wanted to look him in the eye and understand how 15-year-old human boy in worn-out sneakers had managed to teach her daughter something that 3,000 years of imperial legacy had failed to. She wanted to understand kindness. It happened on a Thursday in December. The snow had come early that year. Maple Street was white and quiet, and the cold was the serious kind, the kind that made breath hang in the air like small clouds. Eli had shown up at 6:45 as always, and Saya had been waiting, bundled in a coat that was clearly designed for a warmer climate. Her legs were bad that morning. The cold always made them worse. Eli had crouched down without being asked, and Saya had climbed onto his back without protesting, which told him just how much pain she was inches. He had pulled her bag over his own shoulder and started walking. They were 2 blocks from school when the car pulled up alongside them. It was a quiet vehicle. Dark. No visible manufacturer's logo. It moved without making a sound, which even in 2187 was unusual. It stopped gently at the curb, and the window came down. The woman inside looked human at first glance. She had the same silver-pale skin as Saya, but it was richer somehow, deeper. Her eyes were not violet. They were a dark, shifting gold that caught the light in a way that did not quite make sense. Her hair was dark and pulled back simply. She was dressed in plain clothes, a coat, a scarf. Nothing that would make anyone look twice. But Eli felt something the moment she looked at him. It was not fear exactly. It was more like standing at the edge of something very large and very deep, and suddenly becoming aware of how small you were. Like looking up at a clear night sky and really, truly understanding for the first time that the darkness went on forever. "You must be Eli," the woman said. Her voice was calm, warm, even, but underneath the warmth there was something else. Something ancient and certain, the way bedrock feels under your feet. "Yes, ma'am," Eli said, because whatever else he felt, his mother had raised him to be polite. "I am Saya's mother," she said. "I have been wanting to meet you." Saya, still on Eli's back, had gone very still. Eli could feel the tension in her arms where they rested on his shoulders. "Mom," Saya said quietly. One word, but it carried everything, a quiet plea, a warning, and something that sounded almost like embarrassment. The woman looked at her daughter. Something passed across her face. Something soft. "Come inside," she said. "I will drive you both to school. It is too cold." Eli hesitated for half a second. Then he helped Heir into the back seat, climbed in beside her, and the door closed quietly behind them. The inside of the car was warmer than it had any right to be. And the technology on the dashboard, Lee saw it in the brief moment before the screens dimmed automatically, was nothing he had ever seen before. Not in any human vehicle. Not in any alien vehicle he had encountered. He did not say anything about it. They rode in silence for a moment. Then Seiya's mother spoke. "She told me you carry her when her legs are bad," she said. "Not a question." "Sometimes," Eli said. "Why?" It was the same question Seiya had asked him on the school steps. Eli gave the same kind of answer. "Because it needed doing," he said. "And I was there." The woman in the front seat was quiet for a long moment. "That is all," she said. "That is all," Eli said. He heard her breathe out slowly. It was the breath of someone putting something down. Something heavy that they had been carrying for a long time. "Eli," she said, and her voice was different now, quieter, more serious. "I want to tell you something, and I want you to know that I am not in the habit of saying things I do not mean." "Okay," he said. "What you have done for my daughter is worth more to me than anything I have ever been offered in my life. And I have been offered a great deal." Eli did not know what to say to that. So he said nothing. He just nodded. They pulled up to the school. Seiya's mother helped Eli lift Heir out of the car. Before Eli turned to go, the woman placed one hand briefly on his arm. He looked up at her. Those gold eyes were steady and direct. "You do not know who I am," she said. "But one day you will. And when that day comes, I want you to know this: you were kind to my daughter before you knew. That matters more than you can understand right now." Then she stepped back, and the car door closed, and the quiet, dark vehicle slid away down the snow-covered street. Eli stood there for a moment, watching it go. Then he picked up both bags, turned to Seiya, and said, "Your mom seems nice." Seiya made a sound that was half laugh and half something she did not have a word for. "She is," Seiya said. "She is also the reason I never told you my last name." Spring came slowly to Ohio that year. March passed. April came in warm and green and full of the smell of cut grass and rain on hot pavement. Seiya's legs were better in the warmth. Some mornings she could walk the whole way herself, and Eli would just walk beside her, matching her pace without thinking about it. Things felt normal, ordinary, good. And then one morning in late April, Seiya told him. They were sitting under the old oak tree on Maple Street before school. There was still time. The morning was quiet. A bird was singing somewhere above them. "I need to tell you something," Seiya said. Eli looked at her. Her voice was different. Careful. "Okay," he said. She looked at her hands, then at the street, then at him. "My full name is Seiya Vale," she said. Eli knew that name. Every person on Earth with a basic education knew that name. The Vale dynasty was in every history textbook ever written since first contact. It was in every political briefing, every diplomatic document, every news story about interstellar relations. He stared at her. As in, he started. "As in the Vale dynasty." "Yes," she said. "My mother is the matriarch. She rules 47 star systems." She paused. "She owns the galaxy. Or most of it. Anyway." Eli was quiet for a long time. The bird above them kept singing. "Okay," he said finally. Seiya blinked. "Okay." "I mean," he picked at a piece of grass. "That is a lot to take inches. But you are still you." "Right." She looked at him. Those violet eyes were wide. You do not feel differently, she said. About what? About me. About carrying me. About any of it, she stopped. Most people, when they find out, they either become afraid or they start treating me differently. Like I am a title and not a person. Eli thought about it seriously, the way he did with most things. You sat on a cold sidewalk and refused to ask for help, he said. That is who you are. The galaxy thing is just where you are from. Saya was quiet for a very long moment. Then she said, My mother wants to offer you something. She has been trying to find a way to repay you for months. She says there is nothing in the standard framework of gift-giving that comes close to what she wants to express. She does not need to give me anything, Eli said immediately. I know, Saya said. She knows that too. She said, and I am quoting her exactly, that the fact that you will say that is precisely why she insists. Eli looked at her. What does she want to give me? Saya took a breath. She wants to offer your mother full medical coverage. Guaranteed. For life. Through the Vale dynasty's medical network, she paused. Your mother has been skipping her own treatment appointments to afford yours. My mother knows. She has known since December. Eli said nothing. His jaw was tight. She also wants to offer you scholarship to any educational institution in the 47 systems. Any field. Any planet. Fully funded. Still, Eli said nothing. And she wants to give you a formal acknowledgement. A Vale dynasty commendation for an act of extraordinary kindness. Saya's voice was quieter now. Eli, that commendation has been awarded only 9 times in 3,000 years of dynasty history. The morning was very still. Eli looked down at the grass for a long time. When he looked back up, his eyes were bright. Your mom does not owe me anything, he said. His voice was steady but rough at the edges. I carried you because it was the right thing to do. That is the only reason. I know, Saya said softly. She knows that too. That is why this is not payment. It is not a transaction, she met his eyes. She said to tell you, this is what it looks like when someone who has spent 30 years ruling an empire finally learns something new. She wants to honor that. Eli sat with that for a long time. The oak tree moved above them in the morning breeze. The bird was still singing. The street was quiet and ordinary and golden in the April light. Okay, he said at last. Tell her thank you. Saya nodded. Then, very quietly, she said, she also wanted me to tell you one more thing. What? She said. Saya stopped. Started again. She said that in 30 years of ruling the galaxy, no one has ever sat down next to her on a cold sidewalk and waited with her. She said she had forgotten that was something people could do. Eli looked at Saya. Saya looked back at him. And there, under the old oak tree on Maple Street in a small town in Ohio, something shifted in the universe. Not dramatically. Not with fire or thunder or the movement of stars. Quietly, the way the most important things always shift. A boy from Earth. A girl from the galaxy. And the invisible thread between them that had started with a simple question, do you need help, and had traveled, without either of them knowing, all the way to the most powerful seat of authority in the known universe. And changed it. Here is the part that will stay with you. 6 months later, the Vale dynasty made an official policy change. For the first time in 3,000 years, the dynasty's humanitarian aid framework was restructured. The new framework was built around one principle: aid given freely, without expectation of return, is the highest form of power. The policy document was titled, in the official Vale language, something that translated roughly as, the Maple Street Doctrine. Nobody on Earth knew where the name came from. Except one boy in Ohio. and one girl with violet eyes, and a mother who had ruled a galaxy for 30 years and finally, in a small town far from home, learned what it meant to be genuinely powerful. If you think your kindness does not reach far, think about Ali. Think about a sidewalk. Think about worn-out sneakers. Think about how far one small act can travel when it is completely, purely, unreservedly real. Here is what this story leaves us with. Eli never set out to change anything. He just could not walk past someone who needed help. And that one choice, made quietly, on a cold morning, on an ordinary street, rippled all the way to the top of the most powerful dynasty in the known galaxy and rewrote how they treated every being in their care. Kindness is not small. It only looks small from the outside. Saya got to live in a world where someone helped her not because of who her mother was, but in spite of never knowing. And her mother got to see, for the first time, what leadership built on care rather than calculation actually looks like. If this story moved you, hit the like button right now. It helps this channel reach more people who need to hear stories like this one. Subscribe so you never miss a new HFY story, because we put out new content every single week, and every story is built to make you feel something real. And here is your question for today. Drop your answer in the comments below. If you were Eli, and you found out the truth about Saya's mother, what would you have done differently? Would you have changed anything? Watch the next video on screen right now. It is another HFY story about a human who did something so unexpected that it stopped an intergalactic war. You do not want to miss it. This is HFYSCIFI. We will see you in the next one.